In this video I'm going to show you how to paint a winter landscape which will feature some sky, some distant trees, some other trees nearer, some reflected trees in the water and also ice and snow. So it is a very loose landscape and I'm going to use a very limited palette. Here I have just used Prussian blue and burnt sienna. Leaving the white gaps for the snow, and here's the suggestion of the water where you've got the reflection. This one, however, I decided to add a bit of Naples yellow just to give that really wintry, thundery feeling almost to the picture, and of course that mixed beautifully with some of the blue to give these very nice greens, and you've got some fabulous marks happening. And so it's a painting that's going to evolve as we go along. So let's get started. First of all, I'm going to wet the top half of the paper. Now this time, instead of using Prussian, I thought I'd try a Cerulean blue and see if that gives us a nice cold feeling. I think I need to go to a slightly bigger brush. As I say, it's a very wet painting. We don't want anything too precise in this. Big blob of pure pigment there. This looks quite a dark cerulean blue. It's actually the make of Cerulean. They do all vary, of course, according to manufacture. So we're just going to go down there. I'm now going to put some tree mark lines in just to give me an idea of where I'm going to go. So these presumably are on a little island, as it were. Because I'm doing an organic object, a tree, I'm holding my brush very loosely so I get this nice natural line. So I'm not having a lot of control, which I would if I was doing it, holding it down there. So I'm just marking in a few ideas just to get me started. I'm going back to this smaller brush with the cerulean blue, and I'm just going to put in a sort of a distant lot of trees there. Let's see how this goes. Oh, it's running nicely up there. I just thought cerulean blue might be an interesting different choice of colour. Going up into the wet area to let it bleed, because that will be probably my more distant trees. To put a little bit in along here. It's like the other side of the lake almost. I want to have some of my tree up there, so I'm not going to go up there too much. And then we're going to have a bit of, say, this side of the lake coming forward. You'll see it as it comes together. Get into that before it dries off. So some of this is going to be the water, which is obviously reflected from the sky, and some of it will be covered in snow. Okay, let's go back to our trees. The idea of this effect here is to show that there are lots of twigs, because there's obviously no longer any leaves on them in the winter, so that effect is to show lots of twigs. So I'm using the burnt sienna still, and I'm just going to go in while it's still wet. And make some tree shapes. I'm putting in effectively the twiggy bits where the leaves would have been, and then I'm going to fill in the gaps with the branches, so it's join up the blobs of leaves or the blobs of twigs. And let those colours just happily mix. I'm going to put a bit of more, make the ground effect of this little island or a piece of land jutting out. I've changed to a bigger brush, it's holding the water better, this one. Now the question is, do I want to put some yellow in? I think I will, and I think I'm going to go for that Naples yellow again and just put a bit. See, it's a very, very wet painting, very wet indeed. A bit through there, get some in the trees. And we'll have a bit there on the little island bit. And a bit of cerulean blue. If I add more yellow, that will give us some nice greeny patches. Going back to some cerulean blue, again making sort of tree shapes and letting them just bleed into the colour. Right, I'm now going to mix some cerulean blue with the burnt sienna to give me a nicer, darker grey colour. Some distance colour there. We'll water that down a bit. Water it down a lot. Just let some of it come into here as well. I'm now going back to a smaller brush, and I'm going to start adding more depth of colour. See how wet that is? I'm really letting it work wet. Of course, then you get lots of nice surprises. And now I want to get some reflection. That's still wet, so let that run in there. Coming back to the burnt umber, actually. Have I been saying burnt sienna? Sorry. Now just bringing up a few little fine, get that branch coming out there. When that's dried off, I'll be able to put some branches in, just to give an indication. That's a bit too, put that there. And again, I'm mixing with the bit of the cerulean blue to give me a really dark colour there. Because it's all about colour values, you've got to have the light to appreciate the dark. These are going to be some trees over here, so I'm going to, while I've got that on my brush, I'm going to just put some lines in to give the impression. And let's put a bit of shadow underneath whatever those trees, that distant area is. I like the way that yellow is all mixing with that blue. I'm just going to lift this off a little bit. It's a bit too dark to what I wanted. Okay, I'm going to let that dry and we'll come back to that in a few minutes.